So welcome everybody. I'm Becky Givan. I'm the current president of our faculty, grad worker, postdoc, and EOF counselor union. And I'm really glad everybody made the time to come today to sort of get a status report on where we are, where we need to be, what we need to do in terms of our contract campaign. Very simple agenda for tonight, and really trying to leave a lot of time for question and answer, which is really discussion and comments. So two main agenda items. One is our demands. We're going to briefly summarize our core demands. We won't get into every contract proposal in detail, but we will talk about our core demands, and then we'll talk about where we are in bargaining and what's ahead of us. So with that said, a couple of mechanics, I guess, housekeeping. Going to use the, I know sometimes we type stack in the chat. We're going to use the Zoom raise hand so that people can use the chat for chatting and getting to know each other. Feel free to make comments. I would not suggest asking questions that you want the speakers to answer, because we won't be able to stay on top of it, but we may be able to follow up later. But you can certainly express your opinions there. And some of our outstanding union staff are on here, and we'll be sharing some links to some of our resources as we talk about things. So do use the Zoom hand raise if you want to speak. We'll have a couple of, but after each sort of chunk of our agenda, we'll have some time for questions, answers, comments, etc. And we will be able to hear from, I hope, as many as possible of you. We'll ask you to keep your comments sort of fairly concise, so we can get through as many people as possible. But let me just give the overview of where we are. Where we are is we've been ostensibly bargaining since May, but what that means is we've had a ton of time not at the bargaining table, and when we have been at the bargaining table, we've made very, very little progress. We have a summary available on our website, both a detailed summary and a more concise summary, which says, I think in no uncertain terms, that the response from management to our bargaining proposals has either been no or nothing, right? So on many of our key proposals, they just haven't responded at all. On the ones they have, they've said no, which often involves just striking out everything in the contract language that we propose. So what I want to do is just give a brief overview of some of our core demands. And I know some of you have heard them before. Some of you haven't been able to engage as much with them. And I'm going to ask a few people to cover some of these pieces. So we're going to start with our economic demands, our salary proposals, and Maria Garth, member of our bargaining committee, is going to give that overview. So thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you, Becky. So I will keep this very brief, and if people have follow-up questions, please ask during the Q&A. So I'm just going to go over our salary proposal, which is Article 8. I do encourage everyone to read through this article for themselves, but the key highlights are we're asking for a 5% per year salary increase. So this is for all faculty, and this would be from 2023 in the amount of 5% each year through 2026, which is the end of the contract. And then next, we're asking for additional increases for Camden and Newark Arts and Sciences faculty. So for Camden, this would be retroactive to 2020, an additional across the board salary increase for 10%. And then in Newark, retroactive also to 2020, additional across the board salary increase in the amount of 5%. So 10% for Camden, 5% for Newark. Then our next demand is the cost of living increase if inflation is over 5%. So I guess I can maybe read this to you very quickly, but what we're asking for is that everyone who is covered by our contract would receive this cost of living adjustment, which is equal to the difference between whatever our July 1st salary increase would be and the consumer price index. And you can read a little bit more about that in the contract language. And then lastly, we have the TAGA living wage demand. As some of you might know, our current TAGA wage for academic year workers, and most TAs and GAs are academic year workers, is just over 30,000. So our demand is for 37,000 for academic year workers, and this would go from 37,000 to 41.5 for academic year appointments from 2020 through 2026, and 2026 because that's the end of our contract term. So during the term of the agreement, the academic year salary is basically stepping up every year, beginning at 37 and then on up to 41.5. This is for academic year appointments, and for calendar year appointments, it's a little larger. Maybe for the sake of time, I won't go into the calendar year appointments, but that is in our Article 8 proposal if you would like to see the salary chart. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. And yeah, you can all the proposals are available. And what you'll see is that we tried to craft proposals that are consider the very high rate of inflation that we're currently all dealing with. And that also raise those who have been unfairly underpaid more, whether because of the campus or grad workers not currently making a living wage and now falling behind our peer institutions as well. The next set of demands are really around contingency. You know, it's easy to say, oh, higher ed has a contingency crisis, but we have proposals for dealing with that. As you all know, there has been an increasing proportion of our instruction at Rutgers taught by those who are on contingent appointments. And so our proposals include teaching tenure for teaching intensive faculty, currently NTTs, the non-tenure track faculty, categorized by what they are not rather than what they are. So we have a proposal for teaching tenure. And then we also are proposing fractional appointments for part-time lecturers, so that rather than being paid piece rate and at a rate far lower than colleagues doing the same work, part-time lecturers would be converted to fractional appointments based on the fraction of full-time that they were working. So those are our proposals around contingency. Donna Murch is going to cover some of the category of proposals that we think of in terms of sort of control over our work, democracy in the workplace, and those areas. So I want to hand over to Donna Murch, who, for those of you who don't know her, is our New Brunswick chapter president. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you so much, Becky, and thank you for hosting all of us and putting together this amazing town hall, along with all of our staff, Sherry, Alan, and others. So I think that one of the biggest issues that we're facing is loss of control over our work. I've taught at Rutgers since 2004, and I feel like increasingly I don't even recognize my workplace. It has changed so profoundly over the last 20 years, and these changes have really been accelerating in the last 5 and even the last 2 years. So very importantly, Article 21 of our contract speaks to the right to negotiate over university systems that affect teaching and research conditions, including scheduling, reimbursements, and travel. I think we're all aware of how destructive InfoSylum, rebranded as Course Atlas, has been. It's created problems with retention. We've actually had faculty leave over this issue of not feeling that they have the right to schedule and that they and their own departments. It's created a million different problems also with how we schedule graduate classes and undergraduate classes, not to mention the research centers. And a big part of our jobs is doing research. And in order to have the time to go to labs, in my case, I'm a historian, to go to archives, to publish articles, that InfoSylum is so directly damaging one of the most important ways that we raise our metrics as an institution, by damaging our ability to do research and to do proper service. I think we're also well aware of the problems with reimbursement with the Salesforce software and how difficult it's become to book flights and to book hotels. I'll just give an example that I think lots of other people could identify with. I had to go to a conference in New Orleans. I ended up paying $1,300 for the flight and then paying $350 for a hotel room. If I had been able to book it myself, it would have been $150 cheaper per night. So this is in fact affecting all of us, especially in a time of high inflation. Not everyone has a research budget, or people have very limited research budgets. It's also affected grants when people are paying more than a third for the core supports that are needed to put on a conference or to bring researchers. So I think that that's huge. I also want to stress the problems with the library. Our library is in such serious trouble. We have lost many of the periodicals that we have previously had. We've seen a 20% cut in the staff just over the past few years. We've seen area studies librarians no longer having control of acquisitions instead of that being bureaucratized. So I think the combination of the lack of control over software and the core systems that are being used by the university, combined with the difficulty of using our research budgets, has just really impacted our ability to do research. And I want to end just by talking about the grad student demands, because I know some other people will be covering this, but I think for many faculty, I know for myself, I'm very concerned about a whole generation of graduate students not being able to complete their PhDs. It is very clear now, I guess we're 3 years into the pandemic almost, that the people that were first, second, and third years that were pre-ABD were deeply and profoundly affected by the inability to do research. So for our students, they're historians. The borders of the country were largely closed and the archives themselves were shuttered, even for people doing local research. So I think one of the big issues, I think, for people that are advising graduate students is making sure that they have a living wage, that they have a minimum of 5 years of funding, and that we have a grad extension for everyone that was present at the university during COVID. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. Those are just huge issues. And I think, oh, go ahead, Donna.
I can't believe I forgot this. I had this like written and underlined 3 times. I just want to invite people to 2 things. On November 29th, we are having a special bargaining session that is focused on Course Atlas, InfoSylum, and other issues of the tenured stream faculty. So I really want to invite people. What we really need are people to give testimony so that we can talk about how the research functions of the university are being damaged. So Becky, is that from 4 to 6 on the 29th?
Yep.
And then of course we will all be out protesting at the Board of Governors on December 6th.
Thanks, Donna, and more on all of that to come. But thank you. Yeah, and I think I just want to really underscore what Donna said, and also for those of you that have been in a bargaining session, Donna's explanation, for instance, about how much more money it's costing to use these ridiculous systems. The people across the table from us have no understanding or experience of that. They don't understand the work we do. They don't understand the supports we need to do our job, or what's being done to us that's making it harder, and in cases like this, costing the university more money. I think that's absolutely critical. So I'm going to cover the next few areas in the interest of kind of getting us through so we can get into some discussion and conversation. I think many folks know about our one faculty demand, but we're demanding that we merge our separate bargaining units that have separate contracts. Right now, we have separate bargaining units with the biomedical faculty from the basically decade-old merger between the medical school and biomedical colleges and what's sometimes still called Legacy Rutgers. We want one bargaining unit, including all of us, including the biomedical faculty, but also including our part-time colleagues and also including our postdocs who requested bargaining dates when we did 6 months ago and have still not been given a single bargaining date. So that tells you the respect for postdocs around here. So we have a demand for one faculty all under one bargaining unit. We also have a number of equity-based proposals. You all who were here the last time around remember that equity was at the heart of our last contract campaign organized around the principles of equity, security, and dignity. Our equity demands include fixing the pay equity program. We are close to signing off on what I would consider a sort of medium fix to what was implemented very poorly on our very solid equity program that we negotiated with the last contract, but the university decided to do everything they could to implement it as weakly as possible. So we'll have some fixes in place immediately, but we'll need to do much more to make sure that true equity can be achieved through those applications for pay equity adjustments. Maria also mentioned specific across the board pay increases for Camden and Newark Arts and Sciences faculty who are systematically underpaid compared to colleagues in New Brunswick doing the same work. And we also have a number of proposals around the university's commitment to race and gender diversity, including things like caregiver support, including dissertation fellowships, including a number of other areas of support for, I would say, the stated commitment that the university has made, but seems unwilling to back up. And the final area, and you'll hear much more about this as we get into December, are our common good demands, thinking about our role in the community. And so we've been working with community partners and students to develop our common good demands, including a rent freeze for Rutgers owned housing, including an excluded workers fund for workers who live in our communities but weren't able to access any of the state pandemic support that was available. Mostly those would be people who are not citizens, but we would develop and distribute a fund for those who have been excluded from those pandemic supports. And then ending fines and fees for students. So some of you may know our students who fall behind on a term bill are subject to not being able to get a transcript, not being able to get a diploma, or not being able to re-enroll just because they owe a small amount of money to the university. A donor tried to pay off some of those debts with the university, and the university declined, which was sort of a horrifying thing. They would rather not let those students graduate and go on with their lives and send them to debt collection, which does not seem the best way to give Rutgers students and potential alumni their best start in the world after leaving our campuses. So with that said, I want to turn us over to questions and answers. If you could go ahead and use the Zoom raise hand, and I will call on people. I'll ask you to keep your comments short, and I'll just say I will call on you based on people raising their hand. I may not go in order, and that could be intentional, just making sure that someone who's positioned to respond to something can respond, and also that we hear from a number of different voices. So please do raise your hand if you have questions or comments. Those of you that have been participating in the development of proposals or in bargaining sessions who want to comment on what you've seen, you should do that. I see Bob Boykus. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep after President Holloway on the issue of equal pay for equal work, because his position is absolutely indefensible, and the Senate is going to try and keep bringing pressure on that point. But I think it's important for us also. I mean, it's unbelievable that someone like him would say, well, it's a complex issue. That's what they used to say to explain why women were underpaid for many years doing the same job. So I think that's an important kind of pressure, because maybe we can shame him into doing something more reasonable.
I think that's right, although I will push back a little bit and say these people have no shame, right? And so we're going to have to flex our muscles a little bit and show what we're willing to do. They're not willing to do the right thing just because it's the right thing. But thank you so much, Bob. I think that's absolutely right. And I think one of the great things we've done is really frame this demand in terms of equal pay for equal work, because once you shine a light on the fact that the work is the same, it becomes very difficult to argue against it. But I want to let others get in. And if there's anybody who's on the organizing and action team or the bargaining committee who wants to add anything to what we said up top, I'd be happy to come to you as well. You can also raise your hand. Troy, would you mind, I did not ask you in advance for this, but would you mind sharing what it was like as someone who hasn't been, on the bargaining committee or anything like that, just being present in a bargaining session and how you felt about sort of what the demands, how the proposals were met and what management's approach was?
Sure. It was the first time I've been at a bargaining meeting. And it was basically them saying no or saying, we don't have that. We hadn't gotten this in time. It's been no, we only have had a week to look at this. It was just constant roadblock after roadblock. There was no meeting of the minds whatsoever. It was complete resistance.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. Thank you. And we do invite you to come to a bargaining session and see how they go. I think it's actually quite instructive. Do others, anyone else want to get in and say more about questions on the demands, the proposals? I think then I'm going to move us to the next section, which Sarah DeGiorgis and Todd Wolfson are going to talk a bit more. Oh, I'll go to Paul first, and then we'll get a bit more on our bargaining status. And I'll come to Paul O'Keefe, and I have to shout out Paul as one of the people who's written our bargaining updates. We try to have our written updates by someone who's not on the bargaining committee, so they can give a sort of regular member perspective. And Paul's been fantastic with that. So thanks, Paul.
Hey, and hello, and thanks for allowing. I've enjoyed being a part of observing. The one question, the thing that the proposals I'm so overall in support of, and the idea of equal pay for equal work's been so important. The strongest part of that for me has been seeing how PTLs in some ways do exactly the same jobs as members of our unit. And I've just been at the bargaining session this afternoon of the PTLs where even it seemed like management were accidentally slipping up. They kept on getting confused with NDTs and PTLs. And what I want to know, though, is as they are a group who aren't part of our unit, how can we as members and how are you as leadership really trying to make sure those demands don't get left behind if we succeed? So that's what I'd like to hear a little.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I know that we feel, I would say the leaders of the three unions representing faculty feel really strongly about walking through this arm in arm, but it's not going to work unless we stick to it, unless we build power together, right? And so one of the things you'll see if you're the kind of bargaining nerd that delves into our proposals is that we've developed these proposals together. So each chapter has their own democratic structures and their own autonomy, but these are proposals that all do the same thing. And so the way we think about fractional appointments, it's the same in each set of proposals. So even if we get to a point where we're settling 3 contracts instead of 1 contract would be our preference. We want to merge as one faculty. We will have to fight for these things together. And I think it's really critical that those of us who are not PTLs are able to speak sort of confidently about what the treatment of PTLs and what the dependence on exploited PTLs does to all of us, right? And so we have departments where a smaller and smaller number of people are having to take on the roles of program directors and deal with trying to provide support for a large number of PTLs who are, being hired at the last minute and all of that. And there's not sufficient people able to do the administrative jobs on which the whole university depends, right? And that is to the detriment of all of us. When students take classes with faculty who are not able to stay after class because they have to drive to another campus to teach a different class, that's not good for anybody, right? And so understanding how these demands fit together. And so commitment to a sort of fair, equitable university that works for students means addressing these issues. And I think to expand on Paul's question a little bit, it's going to get hard, right? The end of the bargaining process involves trade-offs. And what we need to do is make trade-offs together, not against each other, but together decide what we're willing to trade and for what. And that will be hard, but I believe really strongly that we have built a lot of trust across these chapters, and we will have decision-making processes in place that respect the autonomy of each chapter, but also allow us to say, what is strategic? How can we move this through together? How can we fight together? How can we build up and take action together? And I think we'll see that on December 6th. There will be strong turnout from all of the different bargaining units to sort of say, we're doing this together, we're fighting for the same things. So on that note, I think I'll hand us over to Sarah DeGiorgis and Todd Wolfson, who will talk a bit about where we are and I guess where we aren't in bargaining and what we're looking to next. So thanks. I think Sarah's gonna maybe go first. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I just wanted to just give a little update on bargaining. Honestly, Troy, I think, said it really well when he explained how it felt for him observing bargaining. We've been at the table since the end of May, and we really haven't gotten anywhere specifically on like the grad extensions, which I've been working on since it's still the pandemic, but since the earlier in the pandemic. So going on just a long time now. The management still acts like they don't understand what we're asking for. We end up just presenting, especially for the grad articles, just the same articles over and over, talking about the same things, and management is just not offering us any sort of reasonable, there's no like back and forth, there's no reasonable counters. The one counter that we got on our TAGA article, they just struck all of our language. So we just unstruck it and sent them back to them. But that's kind of what's going on at bargaining. And I do recommend that people come and watch if you're interested. You might be really shocked at how either little they say or the things they choose to bring up, but it's definitely nothing of substance. We aren't having a really good back and forth. So we need to put outside pressure on this. This is not going to be something that is won at the table. Todd, do you want to?
Yeah, I can add. Hey, everyone, it's good to see you all. I mean, I just think for perspective, and then this might have been said at the top, and I'm sorry I came in late. This is a really particular moment in higher ed. On one hand, we see 50,000 workers striking in California. We see, I don't know how many new school adjuncts striking in New York. We see grad workers about to go on strike at Temple. We see faculty at University of Illinois, Chicago, about to take a strike vote and plan to go on strike in January. All of that is taking place, massive militancy on one hand. And then on the other hand, in Florida, they're trying to pass a bill to do away with tenure. There is a massive political moment in this country, and higher ed workers are at the center of this moment. And so I think we all have to just be cognizant of that when we think about the bargaining moment we're in and how we're going to win our demands. And so, I mean, with respect to our demands, we know this, and Troy laid it out, Sarah laid it out, Becky laid it out, Donna laid it out. Power concedes nothing without a friggin' demand. They are not going to give us anything. They will give us nothing. They will give us 2% raises 6 months late, erasing our months of work the next 4 years in a row, and tell us to go take a long walk off a short pier because they don't give a shit about any of us, including our distinguished faculty or our full professors. They don't care about any of us, right? And so there's only one way we're going to win. There's only one way we're going to win: contingency demands for adjunct faculty, contingency demands for non-tenure track faculty, contingency demands for grad workers, democracy in the workplace, and getting rid of that shit program info asylum, and winning raises that we deserve, and getting equity on our campuses, racial, gender, campus equity like we all deserve, and many other pieces like a bridge fund. And that is if we fight. And so I just think we all have to get into step with this. It's not us creating the fight. We're fighting to create a humane workplace, and they are stonewalling us. And so it's on us to take this to the next level and force the hand of these buttoned up bureaucrats that don't actually want to get smacked in the face. So let's smack those lawyers in the face. And that's what we got to do. I want to be honest, because I'm sick of this shit. We're going to have to get up. We're going to have to raise our voice on December 6th, and we're going to have to start organizing. We're going to have to talk to every single one of our colleagues and tell them what sort of vampires these people are. They don't know about research. They don't know anything about research, the people bargaining these contracts. They don't know anything about teaching, the people bargaining these contracts. They don't know anything about service, the people bargaining these contracts. And they hate the communities where Rutgers resides, hate those people. They look down on them just like they look down on us. And so we're in a war, and we're going to have to act like it. And so, I don't know. We got to get ourselves together. We got to organize for December 6th. We got to talk to every one of our colleagues. We got to let them know what it looks like at the bargaining table. And we got to scare the shit out of them on December 6th so that we don't have to go on a 1-month strike. Maybe we still will have to. But I'm just saying that I've been in every one of those bargaining sessions. I've dealt with these people for a year or two now. I know what they are. We all know what they are. We all know what they are. They don't care about us. They care about growing the reserves. They don't care about students. They care about growing the reserves. They don't care about service and research. They care about growing the reserves, and they care about a football team. That's what they care about. So we're going to have to take it to them. And December 6th is the next step there, but we can get to December 6th in a second. I see Donna with her hand up, so I'll shut up for a second and kick it to you, Donna.
Yeah, I'll come to you, Donna, and others should get on stack. And I especially want to hear from you. December 6th is our next opportunity to raise our voices. We'll be on all 3 campuses raising our voices before and during the Board of Governors meeting. And what we need is for everybody here not only to sign up and commit to coming, but to talk to your colleagues. You should talk to your department colleagues. You can also sign up to Phone Bank. But we need a strong show of force. When people ask me if we're going to have to go on strike, I tell them I don't know, but the best way to not have to go on strike is to be completely prepared to strike. What will move them is understanding that this is real. They will not be moved by us having these really good arguments that really serve the vision of Rutgers that President Holloway puts out. That does not move them. We have to show what we're prepared to do. So I'll come to Donna, and I would like others to go ahead and raise your hand, thinking about what you need to know, what would help you in turning out yourself and your colleagues on December 6th in terms of where we are and what you need. Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Sarah, and everyone else who's spoken. I don't want to distract us from our primary focus on organizing, which I think is most important. But as I was listening to Todd, I was thinking about how excited all of us were when Jonathan Holloway was chosen as Rutgers' next president, and how he'd written about labor in the 1930s and Black left liberals and even radicals' response to the economic crisis of the 30s. And I am curious that in the face of such labor militancy, why our president is taking such a hard line. We've already seen some of the contracts that are coming out. I think the University of Oregon that have significantly higher wage offers. So I was just going to put that out there so we're thinking about it. It has been really a surprise at the hard line that the Holloway administration is taking when we're seeing one of the biggest labor upsurges in many of our lifetimes. So it's not really a statement, it's a question and something for us to think about in the midst of our organizing.
Thanks, Donna. Others, please raise your hand. Please get in. Now, we don't have a lot of these opportunities to really be together across all of our campuses, across all of our different job titles. So this is really an opportunity to think about what's important to you in our set of demands, and what you need in order to come out and fight for them in order to talk to your colleagues, to feel comfortable speaking up in department meetings, to feel comfortable phone banking? What do you need in order to make sure that you can be present as we get into the next stage of this fight? Let me say one thing which I think speaks to our adjunct pay demand, which is really our adjunct fractional appointment demand. One of the things that we see is that our adjunct pay demand is for pay prorated from full-time NTT salaries. What our adjunct colleagues at places like NYU and Barnard have won is salaries that are higher than our demand. So they've made our demand look reasonable, and also demonstrated that there's really nothing wrong with an equal pay demand that doesn't get us out of line with our peer institutions. It would put us right in line and not even keeping up with them. So they can't argue it on the basis of it somehow, outside of the market or outside of affordability. They can't argue that it's an unreasonable increase. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really mean anything to say that that percentage increase is too high when you've been paid starvation wages that are not equal with colleagues doing the same work. And I think that's really significant. But I do want to encourage folks to comment, to jump in. I wonder if anybody who's been on the organizing and action team or been a department rep doing some of these pieces of work or talking to their colleagues could jump in and talk about what you're hearing from colleagues as you talk to them about stepping up their mobilization and getting involved. Does anyone? I don't necessarily know who's multitasking, so I don't necessarily want to call out names, although I see some of you that have been working really hard on this. So yeah, Jenny, Tim, go ahead, jump in.
Hi. I actually talked to my colleagues just today about the organizing on December, etc. And I was surprised to hear that none of the grad students had ever heard of it. They were completely surprised, didn't know that there will be any action on December. I mean, now they know, but I think we need to communicate a little bit more to make sure that everyone gets to hear about the plans.
And Jenny, you're on Bush campus, right?
Yes.
Todd, do you want to say something about where we are with Bush campus or some of those pieces? Go ahead.
Well, I'll say two things. One on Bush. All right. So on December 6th, we're having 4 actions, right? Or 4 events, 4 major events. There might be small things also on the healthcare campuses, but the 4 major things are in Camden is having its own action at 11:30 at the student at the Paul Robeson Center. In Newark, there's an action at 11:30. In New Brunswick, there's an action that begins at Voorhees Mall at 11:30. And on Bush campus, and maybe Sherry can give us the exact details of where, there's an action. Oh, it's at 12:30 in Camden. God, Camden. All right. And then on Bush campus, they're meeting and they're not coming over to Winans. They're just staying on Bush campus to rally. And the goal is for the first action on 12/6, there'll be a bigger one in Newark on February 28th. But for the 12/6 action, we're lowering the barrier of entry. We want people to engage the action here. So that's one thing. And that's what things look like on the campuses. The one other thing I'll say, I'm going to talk about how, well, 2 things. I'm going to ask people what they're willing to do. But before I do that, I want to talk about how School of Communication and Information is working. So we have full-time faculty, both tenure stream and non-tenure stream. We have adjunct faculty, we have grad workers, and we have professional staff, all housed in the School of Communication and Information across 3 departments. And so we have grad reps. I think I saw Maria on the call and Danielle on the call. We have PTL reps. I don't think our adjuncts are here, but Nat Klimmer and Hank Callett. And then we have full-time faculty reps, Deepa, Britt Paris, Rebecca Reynolds, Jeff Lane, and myself. And so basically we're all reaching out and we're all working to get people to get together and meet at one place at 11 o'clock or 11:15 And we're going to try to get, first of all, I've already said this to my EC and department rep brothers and sisters. We're going to have the most people of any school at the university out, and I dare you to come after us there. But I'll take any bets. But besides from that, what we're going to do is we're going to meet at 11:15, and we're going to march over to Voorhees Mall together. Do not ask people to meet at Voorhees Mall or in Camden or in Newark. Walk together to your actions. People need to do things collectively. Don't ask folks to do it alone. Let's build things. Let's build this movement together. And so that moves me to a question I think we should all start to ask and answer. I plan to talk to 20 people in the next week. Levi and Sebastian are also going to talk to 20 people, right, Sebastian?
Yes.
Yes, see, he's even going to do it. And so we need each of us to commit to talking to 5 to 10 to 15 people. And so as you get online and talk about what's happening in your departments, please talk about who you're going to talk to. You don't have to give us names, but are you going to talk to people? What's your pledge? And are you going to ask other people to talk to people? That's the only way we're going to get there, is if we have these conversations with our brothers and sisters in the departments. And Sebastian is going to rock it. And I know you can too. So I'll kick it back to, I'm not sure who's on stack, but that's what's happening. And Levi said he's going to do it too.
And it's really important that you talk to your colleagues and you make that plan to show up and get to the meeting place together. If you're in Newark or Camden and it's just meeting at your offices, ditching your bags and then walking downstairs together, you should do that. But we also need folks, we do have, as Jenny pointed to, we do have many departments on campus where we don't have any reps. And so we need folks to phone bank people that might not be getting updates in department meetings, might not be hearing about this action, might not be looking at their email because they're overloaded just like everybody else, and they need to know what's going on, and they need to know that they're going to be in good company by participating. So I'll have Sherry get in. I bet she's going to talk to us about some of the pieces of December 6th.
Really, I just want to, folks here are familiar with me for the most part. I'm the senior organizer. I've been here for a while. I know this is outside of a lot of people's comfort zone to reach out to people you don't know or to get on the horn. We're going to need to do it more, because what Jen, you were describing, everybody's gotten emails. You've all gotten emails. You know, you have emails from us. Our emails have emails. People, both the pandemic and the myriad array of things that we need to communicate have created, you know, a reality, not just in terms of union and work stuff, that everybody doesn't open up all of their emails and read everything. There is no way, there is zero chance that thousands of people are going to go into motion without hundreds of people reaching out and talking to them. So you're among those people. You now know it's important that people actually see the outreach to colleagues as central, because we can send 1 million emails. That doesn't matter. If people are not hearing, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It's not the crucial, it's not what's going to win people. When I talk to people at the picket lines at New School, or folks who are on the picket lines at UC, what's been transformative in those fights, even at NYU, where they won with just a strike threat and got 10,400 a class up from 6,200, that's actually in the realm of what we're talking about here for the adjuncts here. If you look at that, it was the conversations they have with each other. So I don't think there's any skipping over that step. I'm just going to be blunt with you. The texting and the internal communication from member to member is going to be what is shifting, going to shift people. So I'm going to put in the chat right here, when are times that people can do phone banking, you can connect with me, but it would be useful to hear from people, and we can be quiet for a moment. If you have reservations about this or hesitations, raise them here. There's no sense in going away from the town hall with your reservations. Bring them to the discussion so we didn't talk through them. Like, I'm not down with this, I'm not into this, this is beyond. Let's talk about it, because that's what's going to make or break everything over these coming months. I'll shut up.
Thanks, Sherry. And I see people with their hand up, and I'll come to you in a second. I just want to really underline this, and I'm going to say this as the chair of the bargaining committee. We have a brilliant, talented, diverse bargaining committee. I would put them up against any bargaining committee anywhere, and we will win nothing if it is left to what happens at the bargaining table. Management will stonewall. They will tell us they didn't have time. They're not sure. Oh, are we working from the same version? Oh, we need to go into caucus for 45 minutes and then come back and not say anything. I mean, they've really perfected the art of doing nothing at the bargaining table. And it's really something I invite you to see it. But we, even with our brilliant, beautiful, and talented bargaining committee, we will win absolutely nothing without a show of strength and of how important this is to us. I mean, I think one of the things is you need to reach out to your colleagues and ask them to step up, but you're asking them to step up for something that they already believe in, right? They already believe that there should be real meaningful faculty governance. They already believe that grad workers should be paid a living wage and we should be competitive with our peers so we can recruit the best and the brightest. They already believe in these things. They just need to step up with the colleagues that they know and trust and demonstrate to the Board of Governors that this is something that matters to us and we're willing to fight for it. And I see we have about 5-10 more minutes. So we still have time to hear from a few more people. I will go to Bob.
Where is the assembly point on the Bush campus?
Sherry, do you know? Go ahead, Sherry.
We're actually, for people who can make it to Voorhees Mall, we're asking you to make it to Voorhees because people are going to march on the BOG. But we understand that some lab workers on Bush can't do that. They can only come out for half an hour. I'll look for the information and find it for you. It's going to be from 11:30 to noon on Bush campus. I'll put it in the thing in a moment. But we are asking people on the New Brunswick campuses to come to Voorhees Mall at 11:30 if you're able.
Thanks, Sherry. And we'll get that to you, and we'll have many more opportunities for you to find out, to get engaged, but we need people to engage in the buildup. So we're happy if you can sign up now and commit to be there, but we really need you to say, I'm going to talk to my closest colleagues. They may be your department colleagues. They may be from interdisciplinary programs. They may be from your neighborhood or other socializing. Sue Sherman, thank you. We will get you a list of distinguished professors. That's great. We need many, many people to do that. Catalina, I'm going to come.
Didn't you just tell us not to go individually to Voorhees Mall?
We'll follow up with you, Bob. Thanks. Catalina, I'm going to come to you and then Sarah. Oh, you're muted.
I have some tenure track colleagues who are coming up for tenure, and though they sympathetic to the to the contract demands, but they're worried about their status, and I don't want to press them. I just wonder what your opinion about this is.
Is Sebastian still here? Sebastian, you want to speak to that? I'm putting you on the spot. He was here and he could maybe respond to that.
Sure.
Sebastian, are you able to?
Sure, yeah. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so so that question has come up internally. Myself since day one, since I arrived to Rutgers, especially where I was coming from. It's easier said than done, but there is no precedent that I'm aware of, and there's just not a basis for someone to come up for tenure and there's not like an iota there's not a shred of evidence that suggests that anyone at any stage of review is going to look at union activity and that be some kind of item that registers with people. I think the question is best suited for those who have served on the PRC committees and who have gone through the process and seen their colleagues over time. But there's just, I would remind them that the culture of our institution, however anti-union President Holloway and the administration might be, is such that being in the union is the norm and not the extreme. And so to be affiliated or associated with the union is in and of itself the pro-social thing to do for everybody. And in fact, I think just showing up physically, to physically be there as an assistant professor, is a huge win in and of itself, because I do agree that structurally assistant professors are kind of positioned to like in a particular precarious way, but also with a lot of inertia. So I would encourage them, if they have really specific questions or just want to vent, to reach out to me. I'll put my email and phone number in the chat. And I'm a 5th-year assistant professor by way of intro, and I've felt very comfortable being in the union as in that role.
Yeah, I'll say more about that. And Sebastian's been for several years on our executive council, and you know, Sebastian was outside the state of the university telling the administration that they quiet quit on us, and has been a model of the ways we can, you know, engage to make sure we get the university that we deserve. And I think it's important for people to know there's no history of any problem in tenure and promotion cases. One of our stalwarts, Nancy Wolf, a distinguished professor who's been excoriating the BOG at the last, I don't even know how many BOG meetings, has also been a longtime member of the PRC. So there's really no history, and we have a very, very strong contract enforcement staff. So if there were any problems, we would obviously address them, but there's never been any issue, and many of us as assistant professors felt very strongly about fighting together arm in arm. The other thing you do is you show that those in senior positions who are going to be on all those critical committees are stepping up and making their voices heard, right? So they know I'm going to be evaluated by my colleague who's out there yelling at the Board of Governors, right? That's who's looking at me and thinking about my tenure case. Others, we have time for a couple more comments if anybody wants to get in. Otherwise, we'll go over final thoughts and actions. Todd, you want to cover the action items? You want to add anything else? I'll just say, for inspiration, spend some time online looking at what it means to have 50,000 workers out at the University of California, right? Look at their solidarity. And I have to say, many ideas for picket lines, from coordinated dances to a lot of excellent dogs in support of their demands. But understand what it means, and it's really, really awe-inspiring. And I feel that the fight in California is a fight for the future of public education, and that is exactly what our fight is.
Could I just say one thing also?
Yeah.
And Kyle said it in the chat, but I think it's also important to underline about people coming out on, and this is Caitlin, to your colleagues' concerns, is that we have postdocs, adjunct faculty, non-tenure track faculty, grad workers, all extremely precarious, just like tenure stream faculty pre-tenure, that will be out there and have always been out there, and are the 50,000 in the streets in all the UC campuses. So that should also just be another point to kind of like lift their comfort level, which is there's all sorts of workers. There's going to be professional staff out there, URAs coming in big numbers. So a lot of people, all with different types of precarity at this university, not just assistant faculty. But yeah, I just want to underline what Becky's saying. I just want us to just remember this moment. This is going to be, from last year to this year, the highest wave of militancy that higher education has ever seen, or at least in like the last 30 or 40 years. I can't imagine there's been a wave that's been more militant than this, but we can go out, and we have some great historians on this call. They can help us figure that out. But I'm going to go on a limb until Jennifer Middlestat tells me I'm wrong, and say, or Donna, and say this is the greatest wave of higher ed militancy that we've ever seen. And so we're in the middle of it, you know. So from the UC right now to UIC faculty, to the adjuncts in both New School and NYU, grads at Columbia last year, Temple grads any minute now, new organizing, a brand new union at Pitt that's organizing their first contract. They're going wall to wall. Same at Colby, same at Donna. There's another New England private that just you told me was going wall to wall. I can't remember what it was. This is an exciting moment for us. And it's an exciting moment, and it's the perfect moment to transform this university into a decent place for all of us, for our students and for all the workers. This is the moment. 10 years from now, God knows this country, God knows what's going to be going on politically. This is the moment to strike and to actually transform and democratize our workplace. And as I said before, and I think Becky was wanting me to give an action list, there's also a tax on higher ed. Florida, we sent out a petition. Everyone should really get out there, sign the petition for Florida faculty. They're threatening their tenure there. They're going to post tenure, get a 5-year review every year where they can be fired. One of the reasons they can be fired is for how they're speaking in the classroom, I believe. And so there's a political litmus test going on. So at the same moment that there's this great militancy, there's a lot of places in strife: Florida, Georgia, Wisconsin, Texas. I even think Hawaii is seeing a regressive tenure bill on. So we have I don't know where we have all this stuff together, but we have petitions and solidarity for places like the UC. And then we also have support for our United Faculty of Florida folks. So we'll get that out, but people should, while getting ready for our own fight, support our brothers and sisters in struggle.
Thanks, Todd. And I'll just say, please RSVP for December 6th. And sorry, my camera went blurry. Please RSVP for December 6th and let us know what you need in order to contact your colleagues and make sure that they can come. What do you need to encourage them to participate, to mobilize, to walk over together if you're in walking distance, to check on their transportation needs if they're coming from somewhere else, to follow up with a text message the day before to everyone who's committed to remind them of the time and place. So RSVP yourself and let us need, you can write to the general union email address, or you can write to any of us. Let us know what you need in order to talk to your colleagues. If you have a department meeting or a department social event, you should be announcing it and making sure people understand where we are. We are getting nothing in bargaining. We are getting absolutely nothing. Our demands are great. You can look at our demands and think how wonderful it would be if we win those. We have not won a single one of them, and we will be fighting for a pay increase until we have a contract. You guys all know we did not get a pay increase in July, and we will not get one until we settle a contract. So please fill out the RSVP and let us know what you need to encourage everybody around you to participate too. This is what we need, and we will get nothing without a strong showing then. On that note, it's right on time. People know I love to end meetings on time. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time today. And I can't wait to be in person with you on December 6th. So I will see you then. Solidarity to all of you, and have a great night.